From across the globe, Francesca and Lubhna connect to explore the differences in their journeys, only to discover a magnitude of similarities from where their journey started to the pressures and stress they have and currently face. Welcome to Normalize the Conversation. I'm your host, Francesca Reicheder, and today I'm joined by the author of Stepping Stones, Taking Towards the Goal, Lubhna Dongre. Join us as we explore the similarities and differences in a collectivist and individualistic society, self-guilt and shame, expectations from family members and society, limitations on mental health resources for youth and young adults, and the impact of social media. Thank you so much for joining me today. I'm really excited for our conversation, but before we begin, I really just want to check in with you. How are you really?
Thank you for that question. And I am doing good. In fact, I am feeling quite courageous right now. This is my first podcast. So that's a good feeling. And in general, as well in life, I am feeling quite courageous. I recently had an exam. So it was a government service exam. And unfortunately, I didn't qualify this year. There were high hopes and so many expectations. But at the same time, it's weird, but I feel okay that the results didn't come out, and at the same time, I feel ready for the next step. I I didn't take that failure as I used to do before, taking the failure more positively. So in that sense, generally in life, I'm feeling quite courageous and brave, I feel. Yeah. How are you?
Well, thank you for answering so honestly. I am sorry about the way it turned out, but I'm really happy to hear that you're looking forward to the next steps. And I think that's so important because I know for me, something that feels like a minor setback can like kind of spiral me downwards. And I'm like, oh no, I failed. I can't do this. And it takes a lot for me to get to that point where I'm ready to accept what happened and be willing to work through it and take the next step and figure out what that looks like. So you are doing so much better than I do. I love that for you. I'm
It took a
doing
month. Yeah.
okay. I'm also feeling really courageous. I had some really great speaking engagements happen, and I love speaking and I love getting to connect with people and do more
Yeah.
face to face. So I'm feeling really excited about that and continuing on with new contracts. But at the same time, I'm feeling kind of like this pressure where I'm getting to that age where everyone around me is getting married and having kids and buying houses, and like it seems like they've got everything together. And I'm at that
That's
point where I'm like, what's the next step? What can I do? How
yeah.
can I get further? Where am I now? Trying to figure it out. So I'm feeling good and excited and courageous in taking those steps. And then a little bit of that peer pressure of, or societal pressure of figuring out, comparing myself, I guess, to where other people my
Yeah.
age are.
Yeah. Definitely. I'm feeling the similar experiences because I think we are at that age of 20s where
Yeah.
there is so much pressure to do more and also to explore so much. And it's that age where we have to take the risk, but we also have to, balance out where we stood and what choices do
Yeah.
we make, which decisions to take, and figure out so many things in midst of all of this. In fact, it starts from being a teenager where people start to ask us our career choices,
Yeah.
and that's where the decisions start to overwhelm us. So
Yeah.
it's a huge journey, I feel, and in midst of all this, we keep going, and it's up and down, and it just it just keeps going. So
Yeah.
it's quite exciting as well, you know.
It is exciting, but I love what you said. It just keeps going because these are the
Yeah,
questions that we've been being asked since we were teenagers. What are you going to
yeah,
do? What do you want? What are you looking forward to in life? What is
true.
your ultimate goal? Just all these questions. And it can feel very overwhelming, especially as a teenager, because it's hard to figure it out. All of these
That,
expectations are on you when you don't know what you want to do, or you have some kind of idea, but it's completely different than everyone else. It can
yeah,
feel so overwhelming.
yeah. It did. And in fact, that's where my journey as well started. So as a teenager, I was so confused. I mean, like everybody else, I was so confused, and there were so many external influences. It's the age of social media, where social media was just taking pace, and everybody was, using Facebook, for example. So I remember my class had this hype of using Facebook, and there are so many distractions out there, and at the same time parents start to ask us what we want to do in future. And Indian society especially is like that, so there is a family pressure there, social pressure, and we start to think as to what we want to do next. These were so many thoughts that were overwhelming me at the age of 13, and I wasn't able to navigate them. Like, obviously nobody really supports us or tells us the direction, and in fact, to an extent, nobody really can tell us that direction. It's that phase where we have to figure it out. And that's where my journey as well started, where I wanted to make a small attempt to just navigate these things. And this is where writing actually came into picture. So writing these things and writing these thoughts, and writing was my passion as well, so writing these thoughts really did help me and has been helping me ever since. So, yeah.
No, I relate to that with the writing helping me like navigate and figure it out. I was 12 years old, I think, when I started my first blog. And it was just trying to answer these questions or make some understanding of life because, like, the time of social media, I remember on Facebook, I don't know if you ever did this, but posting your story as like for a TBH or like for like a rate on the scale of 1 to 10
Yeah.
and feeling so like stressed on what other people were going to like rate me as or what their TBH was going
Exactly.
to be or how many people were going to like my post and
Yeah.
how honest are you supposed to be? Like, I just remember all these questions and feeling like I was constantly comparing myself to my best friend who was getting like 200 likes and I was getting like 11 and
Mm,
just trying to figure out who I am in the midst of so much just pressure from the world around me. And not even
exactly.
pressure that was maybe specifically said to me, but pressure that I kind of
Mm,
put on myself by comparing to everything
yeah.
happening around me. But I'm really
Yeah.
curious, growing up in India, because the societal pressures are very different. So, what are some of those
Mm.
pressures that you faced?
Right. So definitely there is a cultural difference there, because Indian society is quite collectivist in that sense, because we value society, and in fact family is the core unit, and nobody really takes any decision without considering that family aspect or what others will start to think. So societal pressure in the sense, career choices, for example. So there are two different paths usually that people take here: engineering or medical. So this is also very influenced by what other people will think. So there is not really a freedom to choose as well. So many students, they don't get to have that pause in their life so that they could think about themselves, because that individual identity is not formed, and it's not even encouraged, because like teachers also, they are considered as gurus. So guru is somebody people look up to and they follow them. And this goes to a negative aspect, because uh, it's overwhelming as well, because how should a teenager figure it out then? Because they have to think about what society will say, what their family will say, what their parents will say. And so many do succumb to family pressure. They have to take choices that their parents tell them. They can't really choose for themselves, or they don't even understand that boundary. So that's very blurred. Even for other aspects, like uh, taking how should so even for social media, so it translates to social media as well. Because people naturally, from their young age, from their childhood, how they are nurtured is to think what others are thinking. So even their behaviors are on social media reflects that they are very conscious of their identities, of what they are posting, or comparing themselves. That peer pressure is quite high, and the competition in India is huge. Like, uh, there are few seats in colleges, and so many people struggling to get those colleges. So the competition level is massive. And in that space, navigating through this, it's extremely tough. And so many external pressures, and there's no support. So it's a very crumbling situation where that individual finds himself or herself at uh, isolated, probably, because no people don't talk about this. When I was facing these issues, I don't think I had a friend to talk to as well, because
Yeah.
so many don't even understand these things. So it's quite a situation like that.
It is very different from a collectivist to an individualistic society. I
Yeah,
know for me, if someone like tries to tell me what to do, I'm like, I dare you, tell me what to do. I'm not going to do it.
yeah,
And I think for me, expressing my individuality in writing, I started when I was 12, and I would share a little too much sometimes for what my parents would have liked when I would talk about my mental health. I remember the first time I talked about being in a psych ward, my parents were like furious. They're like, you can't put that content out there. And I was like, I'm not
mm,
deleting it. Like, I don't care how
yeah,
other people might perceive you because of my journey. It's my journey, and I want to talk about it and share it. So, looking at
mm,
how I responded and behaved, thinking about that and how individualistic it is, it was about me and my journey and my story. And it wasn't caring about, I don't feel like I don't care about people around me, but not letting what
yeah,
they think or how they perceive it influence what I'm going to do and how I'm going to use my voice.
yeah,
So, I'm trying to imagine what that would have been like if when I started writing, when I started kind of going after what I wanted, if that individuality was not accepted as much.
yeah, yeah. That is definitely true. So when I started writing, I was also 12 uh, when I picked up writing. And of course, it was a different option and different choice, because at that time, when I would tell people that I'm writing a book, it definitely came out as something different.
Yeah.
And in fact, I started it during my final year of high school. So, and final year of high school is usually considered as a turning point where people start to take career choices.
Yeah.
So, I remember some people used to say that, oh, why are you doing this right now? You have to focus on your career. You have to focus on your marks. So, a lot of focus is on the result, on the marks.
Yeah.
So many people used to tell me that if that's not right now, my relatives would tell me. So, but I feel very, very grateful and fortunate that my parents supported me in it. And I was trying to find mentors who would support that journey. So that counterbalanced the negative opinion. I feel my parents acted as a shield uh, from those opinions. Because it's definitely difficult to be different. It's like, do you have the courage to be the black sheep in
Yeah.
midst of so many other white sheep? So it's definitely different, and it takes courage as well to be that change or be that different individual. So definitely was quite a journey. In fact, I think we have a similar journey as well, apart from the context, but definitely we started together at the same similar age. I think that age has a turning point where we start to realize our identity and our personality. I think, yeah, that is definitely a similar experience as well.
Yeah, I remember the first time we connected, we talked about that, how similar our journeys are, yet how different at the same time because we grew up in completely different societies and different types of
Yeah,
expectations. And yet, so much of what we went through was very, very similar. I mean, I
yeah,
know one thing we really talked about was that feeling like, am I good enough for what I'm doing and what I'm trying? I'm trying to be my own person and go after something that's very different from everyone else and constantly questioning, am I good enough? Looking at everyone
exactly.
around us, comparing ourselves, is this the right path for me? I know, like back to what I said with the check in, it's so difficult right now that every time I open social media, and I'm not even that person who wants to get married. Like I at this point in time, I have no interest in like marriage or kids
Yeah,
at this point in time. Yet every time I open social media and I see everyone
yeah,
getting
it
married and
is.
having kids, I'm like feeling like that pressure that I should be doing that too and
Yeah,
I should want that too.
yeah,
And it's really overwhelming, I think, just
it
throughout
is.
my entire journey, both of our journeys, was that like, am I on the right track? Is this worth it? Am I good enough for this?
Yeah, that I've experienced too. This this thought of looking at how other people are doing definitely does trigger me as well. So I'm preparing for the exam. So I'm not associated with any college right now. So I'm preparing for my home and looking at other people doing their masters or taking their job is definitely it definitely does trigger sometimes. But over the period of over the years of reflecting and accepting myself, I think that that distance I've tried to maintain that distance and boundary. So I actually want to share a story here. So during my book writing journey and after it got published, so during the book writing journey it was quite good because I was doing my thing. It was, we just write at our home and it's our thing. But once it's out, then it's open to the judgment of people. It's open to what other people will start to think about me and whether. So when I wrote it, I was just writing. I was just letting my thoughts be free. But once it was out, I had to question myself: Am I okay at being so vulnerable that anybody else could read my thoughts now? And I because I was so young when I published the book, I didn't really know what it would be after doing it. So I once met because I interviewed a lot of people during that book writing journey. I met a former vice president of India, which was quite a good and a happy feeling for me, and I was quite excited for it. So he invited me to his house, and very grand house, of course, and very quiet as well, birds chirping, and it was quite a grand thing. And when I went there, I met him, and I presented my book to him as well. And he said one thing that stuck with me. He said, "Let your windows be open." And at that time I didn't understand what it meant. I didn't know what he meant that time. So I came out, even though that was a happy experience, I came out with two emotions. I was intimidated because it was so grand and I didn't know whether I was ready or I was good enough for presenting my thoughts to somebody like him, because he would read my thoughts. I mean, he would know me, who I am. So I came out of that house being intimidated and confused. So I'm telling this story because uh, it happens with so many of us that even though we're doing good, we still question ourselves. We still ask ourselves whether we are good enough, whether it's worth it, whether, we start to equate ourselves as being perfect. We look for that perfect ideal identity, which actually doesn't really exist, and we don't realize it at that moment, but over a period of time, of course, we grow those ideas as well. It really doesn't exist. So where are we looking for then? Has it happened with you?
Yes. Okay. First of all, that's an incredible story. And yeah, I think there's something so unique about being so vulnerable that when someone reads what you've written, that they can genuinely know you in your heart. And
Yeah.
that's very scary because now you're letting someone into who you are, and how they respond can
Yeah,
feel so
exactly.
like overwhelming, because what if they don't like me? What if they think I overshared? What if they're judging me? What if, what
Mm,
if, what if? It's just all of those
yeah.
kind of negative what ifs. And it's so hard not to let that external validation really control your own perception of yourself. Because when you're
Yeah.
so vulnerable, you are open to everyone else's thoughts and feelings. And I know for me, that was something that I felt so shameful of all the time,
Mm,
that I could write it and someone could read it, but I could not talk about it. Like I could not have a conversation
exactly.
with someone about it after, because I did not want to know their response. I was so afraid
Yeah.
of, what if they don't like me? Anything someone would say to me after that, I would internalize. And then, like you said, trying to have that perfect appearance. So if someone said, "Oh, your voice is too high pitched," that's something I get a lot. "So your voice is too high pitched." Then I felt like I couldn't speak because my voice was
Mm,
irritating to people and people didn't want to hear it. Or you're you look like a child. So then feeling like I have to put on so much makeup and have my hair done and try to dress older so that I look mature enough to be in the conversation. Or I used to love, love, love the color pink. So everything I had was pink. Not that I don't love it anymore, but I just don't walk around in everything being pink. Probably
yeah.
because people would be like, it looks like Barbie threw up all over you. And I was
Mm.
like, okay, well, can't wear pink. Pink is too girly. That's shown as weakness. Like I would internalize everything until I felt like I didn't even know who I was. And I was so afraid that, oh my goodness, what if I get excited and my voice gets really high pitched and people are going to see the
Yeah.
truth? What if
Yeah.
I get a pink phone case and people see, oh, she's too into, I mean, Barbie's a big thing in a good way right now. But I feel like if you talk about this like a
Yeah.
few years ago, not as cool. But she's like so into Barbie, or she's so this, she's so that, constantly afraid that I was gonna say the wrong thing or not have my
Mm.
voice controlled and soft, or my hair not be done, or my makeup not be done enough, or my outfit not look mature enough, but then
Yeah.
also not too mature because you didn't want to look inappropriate for your age as well. And then people want to take you seriously. Just all of these like
Exactly.
overwhelming, I don't even know the word, but it's a lot when you're constantly open to that
It is.
external validation and trying to live in that image you want people to see and accept when if they're not accepting you as you, like that's them. It's not you. But it's so easy to want
Exactly.
to fit into that.
It is definitely true, and I've experienced all of it, or everything that you said. And in fact, it feels quite good to know that
Yeah.
somebody else is also experiencing the same
Yeah.
thing. In fact, if we actually boil this down, everybody just thinks about themselves, that what
Yeah.
others are thinking about them. So it's quite funny that it's really about what we really value. And at the end of the day, that's what matters. It doesn't matter what others are thinking, what others are telling you. It's your own judgment, your value system, and what you want to
Yeah.
figure out. So it's really you who matters.
Yeah.
And accepting that, of course, is very difficult. It's uh,
Yeah.
because there's so many people who would keep telling us that you do this or you do that, or everybody has an opinion about us.
Yeah.
But it's like self acceptance is like a mirror that we don't really show ourselves so often. And accepting that self and smiling at oneself every morning, that's a big thing. I started this a few years ago. Whenever I get up in the morning and when I'm brushing my teeth, I would look at myself and smile and just give a high five. I think this is Mel Robbins talked about this, and it really helped me overcome those thoughts and starting my day fresh and being okay with being myself and showing myself to others. So that's been quite a journey of accepting myself as well. So writing and being open uh, has helped me over the years. What has helped you? I'm curious to know your story as well.
I feel like a lot of different things have helped me, but I love that looking in the mirror and smiling because when I look in the mirror, it's so hard for me not to automatically go to, oh, your face looks dry today, or you have a pimple here, or oh my goodness, how have you not
Yeah,
went and got your eyebrows done yet? Like just all these things are, oh, you didn't work out hard enough the other day. Oh, you're like just all these things.
yeah,
It's so easy to like completely judge myself. So I've been writing like positive quotes on my mirror to like kind of that's what I have to
yeah.
read instead of just looking directly at myself. But I'm gonna try the smiling thing. I don't know how well that's gonna work for me, but I really want to try it because I wonder if I just like looked at myself and was happy, if I would go straight to all the negatives or if I would just like accept my external appearance. I know for me that's something I struggle with is I think because I was always like judged for like my external appearance. I was a competitive cheerleader. They put us in those tiny
Mm.
uniforms. Then it was like my stomach hung over my skirt and it was like this whole big thing. And it was like this whole big thing because someone pointed it out to me and I felt like immediately
Mm.
ashamed. So I spent all my time looking at like my external figure and what was wrong with it and why I wouldn't fit in. So for me, self acceptance kind of comes in two ways. So, first, for like my physical appearance, learning that I can dress however I want to dress and feel confident in my clothes instead of feeling like I have to fit into what someone else thinks I should wear. And being okay if, like, I want to wear sweatpants, I can wear sweatpants. If I want to get dressed up,
Exactly.
I can get dressed up. I don't need to constantly feel like I need to fit into whatever is trending at the moment or what other people are wearing, but just feeling comfortable and confident in my own skin, no matter what I put on, and putting on what makes me
Mm.
feel good. And if that's sweatpants, like so be it. Usually it's sweatpants, by the way. And then the second piece of like that kind of self-awareness and self-acceptance has been a lot of paying attention to my thoughts and where they're coming from. Because, like I said before, about that pressure from society that I need to do this, like you need to get married, have kids. I'm like, that's really in my head right now. I was at a wedding last week, by the way, for reference, why this is so like in my head right now.
Okay.
Um, I never go to weddings and I had to go to one. And this is why I don't go.
Yeah. It is a
So
huge pressure.
it's like all that pressure from kind of society. But did anyone tell me I need to be married and have kids right now? No, no one has said that to me. But I put that in my head based on what I was seeing from other people
Yeah.
and what life looked like in the past, thinking, oh, my grandparents got married and were having kids by the time they were my age. Why haven't I? But it's
Yeah.
not anyone said it to me. It's me taking
Yeah.
different things that I've seen and heard and internalizing it. So paying a lot of
Yeah.
attention to where my thoughts are coming from and recognizing that a lot of times I'm telling myself things because I'm scared, I guess. I'm scared of people judging me or not being perfect or not being on track, not being good enough. So I'm constantly telling myself all these things that are wrong with me and recognizing like I came up with that myself. No one's judging me for whether or not I'm married right now
Mm,
and having kids.
exactly.
No one
Yeah.
is judging me for how far along I am in my education versus my career. No one's judging me for that except for me. Or maybe people are, but they're not saying it to me. I'm the one who's
Yeah.
saying it to
Yeah.
myself. So being so
And they don't
aware
matter.
of, right, where those thoughts are coming from and learning that if I can create these thoughts, then I have the ability to create new thoughts and learn to shift them.
Exactly. Yeah. Just broadening that perspective definitely does make a difference. I have also started to reflect a lot in previous years, where taking each thought and dissecting it, where it comes from, what are the triggers, why exactly that is happening, what's the root cause of it, even unconscious habits, because there's so many habits that we develop and we're not even aware of them.
Yeah.
So dissecting those habits and really being critical, not being critical, but being honest, I think. Yeah, that's a correct word
Yeah.
to say. Being honest to oneself and accepting those parts of ourselves to ourselves, being open to one own self and writing them, or just bringing them to consciousness makes such a huge difference. For example, I'll tell you this is quite funny that I thought about this like this. So before an exam, if I didn't sleep, I would think that my exam is not going to go good. And usually, before the first exam, I would not get good sleep, and which is quite normal. If you look at it, it's quite normal to have that anxiety a day before exam and not sleep. But I had this fixed mindset there that if I don't sleep, my exam is ruined. So it's a predetermined result that it wouldn't happen. But then I dissected that thought. Where is it coming from? Why is it exactly affecting me? Where is the origin of it? And mostly it's just our wrong perceptions and our cognitive biases. And we allow them to stay, without paying attention to them. So it's a difference of just paying attention and then accepting, okay, it was like this. Now I can shift to a different thought process. Just
Yeah.
scientifically accepting that, okay, if you don't sleep, it's because there's anxiety and your body is excited for the next day. Just
Yeah.
that shift in a thought process made such a huge difference that I don't think about the same thing, and I'm quite
Yeah.
excited for the next day and the exam. So this shift, in fact, I've tried this shift for so many different thought processes, and it does make a difference. And this reflection process, of course, it's difficult because we're being honest to ourselves, and it takes again courage to accept parts of ourselves.
Yeah.
But the entire journey of this journey together and with your own self, it does lead to a surreal and a calm state of mind, I feel. And of course, it's a journey. And so yesterday I had different thoughts, today I have different thoughts. I have to just keep learning and relearning. So the process doesn't really end anywhere. It keeps going on.
Yeah, it really does. And I love what you said about kind of being courageous in it because it takes a lot of courage to admit that we're not perfect And that's something that shouldn't take courage because like no one's perfect.
Exactly.
Right? Like no one's perfect. Yet it takes so much courage to admit to ourselves that we don't we're not perfect. We're not gonna not everything's gonna be perfect and in our control all the time. I'd love to think that I can control the weather and the traffic, but I can't,
Yeah.
unfortunately, working on that. No, but there's so many things that we can't control that aren't going to be perfect. And our thoughts can sometimes be one of those things that we're not really perfect at controlling and managing all the time. But
Exactly.
when we are paying attention to them and we're willing to accept, hey, I have negative thoughts sometimes. That's totally a normal piece of the human experience. I can listen to them. I can learn how to shift them. I can understand what they're trying to tell me. Because, like you
Yeah.
said, the lack of sleep, using that as a, oh no, I'm going to fail the exam, nothing's going to come good from it, to, oh, my body's just telling me I'm excited for it. I'm excited for the next day. It's also something that's completely normal to like lose sleep over something that's perceived to be really big,
Yeah.
like an exam. I know I could lose like 2 weeks of sleep over an exam. I'm a nightmare when it comes to exam time because I have this fear of failing. Um, things I should work on. Add that to the list. No, but becoming so aware of these thoughts and knowing that, like, having the courage to admit that, yeah, I have these thoughts sometimes. I can understand where they come from. I can shift them to come in a more positive light. Maybe I am afraid of failing. Maybe that's just telling me that I'm overwhelmed by the pressure I've
Yeah.
put on myself. And now I'm going to shift that thought to I'm worried about the future and what's going to happen, but I feel confident in myself and my abilities that what's meant to be will be. So
Yeah.
acknowledging that insecurity, you don't have to be like, nah, I don't have insecurities anymore. I'm fine. But acknowledging it and then reframing it into I trust myself. I love myself. I'm
Yeah.
here for myself. I believe in myself instead of using those insecurities to tear ourselves down even further.
Yeah. Yeah. That is definitely true. And just being okay to accept the both spectrums, good and the bad, and both of them are just emotions.
No,
Yeah.
exactly. Learning to accept that there's good and there's bad. I mean, the human experience is so beautiful and so messy and so overwhelming and so great. There's the highs, there's the lows. It's so many different things that it's okay when it's not always the highs. It's okay when it's not
Yeah.
always the lows. It's okay when
Yeah.
you are in the lows or you're in the highs. It's all of it is a valid piece of the experience. But at the same time, you deserve to feel good and feel supported and feel loved. So even when you're going through the times that aren't so great, when you're feeling down, when you're feeling maybe unloved or not supported, to know that you deserve to feel that love, to feel that support. And there are small things you can do, whether it's reframing your thoughts, whether it's just
Yeah.
reminding yourself that you're not alone, whether it's reaching out to someone, whether it's trying to explore your own individuality and write like we did, right? It's
Yeah.
finding small things you can do for yourself because when the bad times come, which they will, it's part of life,
Yeah.
unfortunately. Wish it wasn't, but
Exactly.
it is. What can you do to show up for yourself, to
Yeah.
let yourself know that you deserve the best of everything and you deserve to feel great? So know that like it's okay to be upset. It's okay to have negative thoughts. It's okay to not feel great all the time. But it's also okay to chase after that feeling of support, whether it's internally, externally, both. Make sure it's always really important to love yourself too and not just need that external validation from others. Been there, done that. It's not a good, doesn't end well.
Exactly.
Always making sure that you're
Yeah.
there for yourself is so important. I feel like I just went in a circle, like around and around and around to say you deserve to feel supported by yourself. And there's so many things that you can do, whether it just starts as reframing thoughts or accepting yourself as you are so that you can get there.
Yeah. Definitely. And it's not just a moment of time, it's an entire journey.
Yeah.
Uh, you definitely said it so well and framed it so beautifully. And that has happened with me with my book writing. So my book writing journey was quite good. I was writing with passion, but after it got published, I distanced myself from it. In fact, there was a period of time where I couldn't write freely, where I couldn't reread my thoughts. I just couldn't pick writing, and there was a stagnation in that process. That phase definitely was quite tough, because once we distance ourselves from our own values, we start to take wrong decisions as well. We don't really know where we are going. And I started college that time, when these thoughts, and when I was facing this dilemma. I started college, and during that period, one of my friend, not even friend, but a classmate, came up to me and said, so I was in a good college. It's one of the best colleges in India. And she came up to me and she said, if you are an author, there are people here who have gotten international awards, and they are best at their art. And it's like it's nothing really, and it's just one of those so many others. So it's nothing, and you were just one of them. So I don't know how did she get the courage to say this, but that really shook me, because I was already at my low, and I didn't I didn't know how to accept those parts and be open to it. And she said me this about my book. And I'm telling this because uh, that moment and that change uh, was difficult to accept, and to really be open to that experience. And it did closed me further, and my college experience also was affected because of this experience. And it's a vulnerable story. I've never talked about this to anyone before, where I would judge my own writing whenever I used to write. And judging my writing in the sense, I would judge about my typing errors, my spelling errors, my sentence restructuring, etc. And which are so small things, and it's human to make them. But just external influence can make us question so many things, and so many things about our own selves. So that happened. But uh, again, I said I couldn't write freely. And then slowly, gradually, I started to pick up that writing again, being okay with mistakes, being okay with just, scribbling my thoughts. And that is when I started to relive my previous moments. I started to reimagine my previous moments. And like I said, I met Vice President. So I relived those moments. I reimagined them. And remember, he said that let your windows be open. Now I understood what it meant. After years, I understood that he meant that it's okay, and you know be open to experiences. There will be good and there will be bad experiences, but what we let in and how we interpret it, that depends entirely on us. So now that overwhelming and that intimidated feeling is not there. I relived it, and I relived from not a position of scarcity but abundance. That okay, whatever I am, I'm okay with my image, and now I take that image to the world and show it. In fact, today when I'm speaking this and doing this podcast, it's that step of being okay to explore new things, being okay for that growth and making mistakes. I i don't know what the result might be. Even for my exam, I did my best for the exam, but result was out of my control. Now what I can do is to look back at my steps, find my gaps, and then move ahead and just go for the next. What is learn and then unlearn and keep relearning. So it's about that trial and error that keeps going on, and then taking the next step. So it's usually like just like economic business cycle. It's up and down, and that's okay. This entire journey, it's okay, and I think that's what is exciting as well. Taking the risk, trying it, and then just going, just going with our life every day.
Oh, exactly. Taking the risk and being okay with the idea that it may not work out the way you want. You may have to try again in different ways and try and keep trying, and one day you'll get where you're meant to be. You have been absolutely amazing. I have a question for you. What's next?
For me, so this is one of my values that I live for. I want to serve and contribute to my nation and beyond, as my capability could allow me to do. And also focus on accessibility to the marginalized communities and vulnerable communities. this has been at the core of whatever action I take or whatever decision I take. It is to serve. Even when I was writing the book, the intention behind that writing was to help others. So that has been constant, and I keep exploring the career paths, or not the career paths, but just the decisions that I take. So I keep exploring those decisions and keep realigning them with my values. Now I'm at a position where I'm happy with who I am, and I feel I have started to inculcate that growth mindset in me. So I'm excited for what my life holds, and I will be preparing for the government service exam this year as well. And excitingly, I've also taken up my first job recently. So that is quite exciting. I'm very excited to settle in that job and balance together. And both of these, my studies and my job, align with what I truly value at core.
Thank you so much for listening to Normalize the Conversation. Don't forget to subscribe, rate, and review. This podcast is an initiative of Inspiring My Generation, focusing on normalizing the conversation, bringing education and awareness to the forefront, and amplifying global voices to spark change and hope. Inspiring My Generation is a 501c3 nonprofit organization on a mission towards suicide prevention through awareness, conversation, education, and support. Connect with us on Instagram at Inspiring My Generation and visit our website inspiringmygeneration.org to learn more about our work and how you can make a difference.